Now I wanted to jump in and explain something here that might be a little confusing to some people. So I have my 11 inches marked off here, and one question might be, why 11 inches? Weren't you going to cut off 12 inches? Well, you cut off 11 inches, number one, to allow, in case you mismeasure, it's always better to cut shorter, because it's a lot easier to cut metal off than it is to add it later on. But aside from that, whenever I cut the front side, I just cut 3/4 of an inch back from the end. On the inside, I cut probably 2 inches. I just cut right along that stake pocket. Okay. The reason for that is because the main reason, there's several reasons, but the main reason is it's going to be easier to get in and finish this out from a cosmetic standpoint the further I am back from this corner. Plus there was a nice body line here to weld to once I get this up to this line here. Okay, so that's the reason for that. Excuse me, if there was any questions. The other thing is, since I came in 2 inches on this interior panel of the bed, that's going to put me, come around here, that's going to put me on the inside of where I cut on the outside. So, but it's nothing to worry about when I cut with my die grinder. I'm just going to come right up and straight across to here, right to this edge, okay? And I'm just going to cut across, okay? Because this piece here can always be reused, welded back in. It's not a big deal. I can make one of these if I had to, but I'll just save this one and reuse it. But anyway, but yeah, so don't be alarmed if you get started on a project like this. Oh man, I'm way off from the interior to the outside. That's not a big deal because you come in further on the interior than you did on the outside. Hope that wasn't too complicated. I'm horrible with explaining stuff like that, but anyways, so I'm gonna get this cut off, and I will see you in a minute. As you noticed, the top of this bed angles in that way, so it's not from the top down. It's just straight, and but once it gets to the top, it takes a dive in that way. So when you cut your bed, you can see I've got that marked. Something like that, and that's just where I'll be trimming that top piece off to accommodate that where that curves in at the top. But that's something you do, after you've done all your other cutting, pretty much. Anyways, just wanted to throw that in there. Okay, I have it roughly clamped in. As you can tell, this was a really good place to seam that. That's going to work out real good. It's still a little bit long this way, which that was by design. I cut it that way, so I will have plenty of metal if I needed it. So I'm going to come back in and trim this and keep scooting this in until I get the right measurement that I need. It's just, I find for me personally, it's better to do it that way, as opposed to trying to get it perfect the first time, because if you cut it too short, then it's hard to lengthen it out. So okay, back on the 72 bedside. I have done my remeasured, and it looks like I am 3/4 of an inch long to meet this measurement here. So what I'm going to do, the next cut I'm going to make, so basically 3/4 of an inch is 6/8 of an inch. So this tool I'm going to be using to crimp the metal is about 1/2 an inch or 3/8 of an inch from that corner out to the edge. So if I'm, let's say, 6/8 of an inch long, so I'm going to just break that in half, so it would be 3/8 of an inch. Then I'm going to trim off of this edge right here, and that will allow me another 3/8 that I can crimp and slide this, this underneath it. Now the back side is just going to be, or the interior of the bed is just going to be butt welded. So I don't got to allow for that, so it'll be cut the full 3/4 of an inch. This is what I'll be trimming it. So anyway, I'm going to get this cut off and ground off and crimped, and then I'll bring you guys back in when I get that done. Now to cut the 3/4 of an inch off the back side. Okay, so I have got my front section crimped, or ground off, crimped, and I had to cut it one final time. As I mentioned in the previous videos, I always cut things in a little bit long the first time. This was no exception. I ended up having to shave another about 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch off of this section here. Once I've done that, crimped it and cleaned it up. So now I have 25 1/8 from this hole over to this edge, and up here I was looking for a measurement of 43 3/8 from the inside edge of this stake pocket out to this edge here, and I have that. So we're good to go with that. The underneath, or the inside, well, that's going to be dark. There it goes. Okay, so I will do my final trimming on that once I get the front welded on. But there's not going to be much to do to that at all. It's going to be it's very close as it is. So this is all I'm going to be doing to this right now. I'm going to concentrate on the back, and I'm going to take you guys over there in a second. But while I have, before I weld this up permanently, I'm going to take this back off and sandblast as far as I can reach on the inside of that. And then I'll be treating it with something to neutralize any rust that's left. Yeah, and then probably go back with some cavity wax or something like that. 3M cavity wax is probably what I'll use on it. Anyway, on to the back. I have I've got it taped off, marked, all that good stuff. So for this mark here, I just used the 12-inch section that I cut off as a straight edge. It's not real straight, but it'll do for what I'm doing. So as I told you previously, I'm going to come back, or come forward of the marker light, because I want to preserve that. And that's what I've done. So I'll be cutting it at this line. The way I chose to measure this one to make sure that I'm getting exactly 8 inches off of the back is I'll be measuring from this hole, this trim hole, attachment hole, over to a screw that was already here. So I know that's not going anywhere, it's going to be permanent. So I chose that as my measure, and I'm looking for a measurement of 19 3/4 to, once I get that, I know I will have shaved or cut 8 inches off of this. Same thing up here. Let me go around to the other side. And I'll show you what I chose to measure off of here. I just come to the inside of this center stake pocket over to the inside of this stake pocket. Okay, and then to get me 8 inches there, I'm looking for a measurement of 31 1/4 inches. So from this pencil mark over to this first tape line is 8 inches. Now I have not decided at this point whether I'm going to glue this with panel bonding adhesive or if I'm going to weld it. I'm still torn about what to do there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pretend like for the time being that I'm going to be crimping it and welding it. And to do that, I just come back off of that line and made another line about 1/4 inch in, and that's where I'm going to be cutting it. And that way, if I want to crimp it, if I decide to crimp it, I can. Not a big deal. If I don't want to crimp it, all I got to do is come back and recut it here, and it'll butt this, and I'll butt this up to this line, and I can then bond a section underneath if I want to panel bond it. Like I said, I have not figured out or decided yet what I'm going to do with that. Anyways, I'm going to begin cutting this, and I'll bring you guys back in when I get done.